Sıradaki panelimiz Bridging Enterprise Security Silos. Efendim, Infoblox'un Middle East Regional Manager'ını davet ediyoruz. Ashraf geliyor ve moderatörümüz de Osman Karan olacak bu bölümde. Buyurun.
Herkese merhaba. Tekrardan hoş geldiniz mi diyelim yoksa şimdiden iyi akşamlar mı diyelim ama çok teşekkür ederiz tekrar katılımınız için. Bugün özellikle Infoblox tarafında Bridging Security for Silos sunumu için Ashraf aramızda. Fakat ben biraz durumu da özetlemek istiyorum esasında sunumun başlığında ne alacak? İşte gelişmiş saldırılarımız var. Hep bir yaşam döngüsünden bahsediyoruz. Siber ataklar hep bir yaşam döngüsü içerisinde kurumlarımıza saldırmaya çalışıyor ve bunu yaparlarken de hep esasında bildiğimiz iyi uygulamaları manipüle etmeye çalışıyorlar. Bu anlamda atakları son zamanlarda incelediğimizde saldırganların DNS kullanarak ağ üzerinde penetre olduğunu, zararlı yazılım provokasyonu yaparken mutlaka DNS aktivitesini kullandıklarını görüyoruz. Yine son zamanlarda yine komut ve kontrol aktivitelerini yaparken de yine DNS manipülasyonunu ve DNS üzerinden gelen atakların çok ciddi anlamda tehdit oluşturduğunu söylüyoruz. Ben sözü çok fazla uzatmadan Mr. Ashraf bırakmak istiyorum. Kendisi Infoblox Bölge Direktörü. Ashraf, as we know, DNS has been the critical point for advanced cyber attacks. So why DNS is the threat, and could you present us the history of the DNS and why attacks are using the DNS technology?
Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for staying so late just to attend this session. And just a quick thing, my name is Ashraf. I'm the Regional Director for Infoblox, Middle East Africa. I will address shortly all the concerns, talking about DNS security. And if you look at today's presentation, it's about bridging security silos. So let me start with quick view, and you've realized maybe from the previous sessions, and you've seen that everybody's talking about maybe digital transformation, about addressing different aspects of security, and we've seen in the past couple of years, there are a huge number of active users like on the internet. We're living now in an interconnected world. Billions of users online, billions of users are using, the new types of, e-services to do their business. We look at the network has evolved to become new. They have digital transformation. It's the key word. Everybody's talking about digital transformation. In a nutshell, business is done in a new way now. There's a new way of doing business. It's not anymore as we've done the old business. What does this mean? It means now the network itself has become, borderless. So now we live in a borderless world. It's like, the digital enterprise is borderless, and this increases the attack surface. So we also live in a borderless attack surface. So if you have any organization which has local presence, remote presence, global presence, you realize that in any network now, you have more ways to go into the network and also more ways to go out of the network. So infiltration and exfiltration techniques have changed. Let's look specifically of different kinds of security vendors now playing in the market. We look at thousands of vendors. And because of you are living now in a borderless network, you're living in a borderless world, you want to increase the security that you have. You're providing a new business which is exposed. You want to provide more security. So now you look at thousands of vendors in the market. Everybody's playing in the security in a different aspect or in a different layer. Which one do you choose? I know that you as an organization will look at different security vendors, will evaluate, will try to, get the best of breach, from these vendors. What's the best solution from different aspects? Yet there's always a disconnect, because if you look at the intention, you want this type of security. This is the security that you want. It's the Ferrari of security, top security of the network. You're not exposed. Your business is reliable. Your business is always available. But what do you get? What you really get is a different way of security, which is the security that you often get is disconnected components. Yes, it's all these components which are really good, the best tire or the best, shaft or the best things of the Ferrari, but there's a disconnect. And the major disconnect is that these components, they don't talk to each other. You buy different firewalls, you buy IPSs, you buy proxies, you buy different security components and solutions, but they don't talk to each other. Why is this a disconnect? And what's the gap? We realize that even if you invest in many security solutions, you always underestimate or forget or undermine two aspects. One of them is the DNS security part, and the second part is siloed security. Let's dwell into each one of these. When I say DNS security, what do I mean? And unfortunately, when we say DNS security, everybody looks at the external DNS. The first thing I say, DNS security, when I call somebody or introducing, say, are you concerned about DNS security? They always think about the external DNS. And it's not always about the external DNS. If you look at the inside of the network, you also have the internal DNS. You have DNS is actually functioning in every single network in the world. It's the engine of the internet even. If you want to reach any service online, or you want to reach any application even internally, you want to send an email, you have to access the DNS. You want to log onto the network, you have to go to the DNS. So it's critical. It's critical in the network. And every single point coming inside, it's inside the network, or coming from outside, will touch the DNS. Why? Because the DNS is a translate, it changes or translates the domain name into an IP address. And always there's a question from any device on the network that's being asked to the DNS, where I should go. So that's why it's very critical, but unfortunately it's vulnerable, because for many years, whenever the DNS was considered or was created to run, as the engine of the internet, security was not considered as part of it. So if you look at DNS, hackers now using different ways to access the network. So even they're using DNS to, infiltrate or even actually exfiltrate data.
Why now, actually, Ashraf? What do you think? Because you are talking about the DNS, now is important. Why it was not critical point before more than 30 years, for example?
Okay, very, very, very good question. So why now? Why would the DNS be now critical? It's very simple. I just go back to the first slide of the digital transformation, how we do now business. It's a different way of doing business. We're now more dependent on the DNS. We're more dependent on the internet. If I forget my mobile at home, I do all my transactions online. I do shopping, I do everything online and use my mobile. If I forget it at home, I feel disconnected. It's not about only calling. It's also about managing your business, managing everything. You have to always be connected. And to be connected, that means the DNS should be always available. Theoretically, let's say theoretically, if I want to bring down the internet, the only way is to bring down the DNS. If I want to bring globally the internet. That's how critical it is. Why now also? Because it's very simple. Organizations have invested in many security layers, many security solutions, next-gen firewalls, WAFs, proxies, and so on. What's the major part which they have ignored? What's the major gap? What's the thing which they did not invest in? It's DNS. And that's what hackers realized. If I'm a hacker, I wouldn't penetrate in the way which you have protected as an organization. I will look at the places where you're weak. I hope this answered the question, but also maybe in the next slides it will be more clear. I would just wanted to give you an example of some of the attacks. If you look at some of the attacks on the DNS, it's not like bringing down the DNS. We've seen Dyn DNS was brought down, and this brought down Twitter, and millions of dollars were lost. If I want to, I can bring down certain banks by bringing down their DNS. Nobody can reach your e-services. But for some of the examples, which is really interesting, is that cyber attackers are using it to take data out. Another interesting, one, which I just looked on the internet, and which seen it 2 weeks back. There was a DNS espionage attack on the Middle East. And that DNS espionage targeted Lebanon and UAE. And it targeted one of the airlines. And it used DNS tunneling to go in and to take data out. This is very interesting, and this is something you need to really take seriously, because everybody's prone to DNS attacks. And it's not only about bringing down the DNS, it's also about misusing or abusing the DNS traffic for your own purpose. So let's look. We always talked about like DNS, and it's it's important, but why it's so open and it's a threat. You invest in a lot of solutions. Your internal network uses the DNS to go out of the network to the internet and to browse and get information down. But what you realize that all the DNS traffic goes in and out through all your security controls without being inspected properly. Why? Because they have to allow it. Every single solution, security solution on the network has to allow DNS traffic. If you block any DNS traffic, you're blocking your users, you're blocking your applications, you're blocking almost every communication that you have on the network. Who realized this? Hackers, attackers. They realize now malware, they can create malware. They can bring the malware down through your network, through your DNS traffic, which is open, and we call it like Highway 53 because this is the port which is always open. It goes into your data, like takes the data out, also over DNS traffic. Now everybody will say like, how would DNS traffic carry data? Because we know that DNS traffic is only queries. We'll come into this, but I want to also press more on the idea of like, what is the role of DNS with malware? Any infected device over the network, or especially like a device which is infected by a malware, at any point of the malware life cycle, from the infection, from the penetration to the infection, to the data exfiltration, it always has to touch the DNS. Very simple. A malware is a code, and it is encoded by the domain name of the command and control. And whenever the malware goes into the network, it wants to go and say, I want to reach that command and control center. How does it do that? Simply, it says, what is the IP address of that domain? And the question goes to whom? To the local DNS. So the DNS gets a request, and always the DNS will get the request before even the malware will try to go through HTTP or SMTP or any kind of protocol to the internet. So the first request goes to the DNS. And that's where malware, as per even Cisco says, more than 90% of malware uses DNS and takes data over the network using DNS traffic. Let's see an example. For example, I'm carrying my laptop. It's infected by a 0-day or a malware, and this malware wants to take my data out of the network. How it's done? The malware is on my laptop. It gets access to a file. It takes that file, encrypts it, cut it into small chunks, and each chunk is sent as a DNS query. So that's how we are sending it out. For example, we're showing it here in clear text, just not to complicate things. But suppose the data is like the name, and inside the file is the credit card information, which is the last one, and certain address information. How this data can go out of the network? The malware is here. It wants to exfiltrate the credit card information. Simply, it puts the credit card information as the host name in the DNS query and sends this query to the DNS server of the hacker. So it passes through the firewall normally. Why? Because firewalls will say this is legitimate, because I don't know if it's a credit card, if it's just like rubbish data information, and this is a host, I need to resolve it. It goes out to the DNS server of the hacker, and then it's logged as data, and because I'm the hacker, I'm the one who created the malware, I know this is data, and I reassemble it, and I get all the data exfiltrated out of the network. This is a very simple example, but the reality, it's encoded, it's encrypted data. So what's the right solution? You need to make sure that if implementing a DNS security solution that has the proper intelligence on the network to block malware at early stages before it even touches any security solution, as well as prevent data exfiltration over DNS. As Infoblox, we can provide these on-prem and in the cloud, as well as we can identify infected devices without putting any agent on these devices. So mobile devices, we say this is the infected device, and you can even take actions to take it out of the network. Which is really the second part. about siloed security. So when you talk about the second gap, which we realized, it's siloed security. And according to Gartner, if you have siloed security solutions, that means a lot of security devices or solutions that don't talk to each other, we realize that it's very difficult to prevent and detect and respond to advanced attacks. This is Gartner. I intentionally made this presentation specifically for Turkey because I see maybe there's a language barrier, but I wanted to show it in a little bit more graphical or animated way. Different security solutions, including the DNS, and each security solution that you buy comes with a threat feed, with threat information. And we know what's like a threat feed, a subscription of what is good, what's bad, and so on, and to block it. So each one is, you buy its own threat feed. What happens if there's a malware that wants to come to your network, it can come through browsing, it's a 0-day, it's not detected, it infects the devices, comes from one, infects all the devices on your network. Spreads. What happens next? Maybe the malware tries to go out and it has been detected by the sandbox, which detects 0 days. Good. What's next? What's the issue here? What we realize, because we live in a siloed world of security solutions, this information is not being shared along or with the other security solutions. It's just like sitting there on the anti-malware solution. So suppose another infected device tries to go to another way, like to the firewall or to the email or whatever. It actually goes. Why? Because the threat information or the detection here wasn't shared with the other security solutions. Another example of siloed security solutions. If I tell you now, we know that there was a Mirai botnet and so on. I said, like, there are new IP addresses that needs to be blocked on all your security solutions. What do? If I'm the security manager, I would say to the security engineer, go and block all these IPs and domains on all our security devices until these solutions update their threat feeds. How do you do it? Unfortunately, you have to go to every single solution and manually enter this threat information, this new information which is customized, or IPs and domains. And later, if I tell you some of them are false positives, you want to remove them, it will be also as difficult. So what we realized now is that if you have an effective way of threat intelligence, it's very, very difficult to have effective and easy to remediate the network. As a result, you have poor incident response, simply. Ineffective threat intelligence, poor incident response. Another thing which we found is that whenever you have siloed solutions, they don't talk to each other, you lack of automation. You don't respond automatically. If I found in the earlier stage, like the anti-malware solution detected a 0-day, in a manual process, I'll take that 0-day information, the IPs and so on, I go manually and put it on other security solutions. That's manual process. So I interfere in a manual process to react. In order to decrease the manual process complexity, you need more automation, more security devices talking to each other. So the solution itself, better optimization for the threat intelligence, as well as security orchestration. And who's better to do it than the DNS, which sits at the core of the network? Let's talk about our solution. So let's talk about our solution. Like Infoblox has something called Threat Intelligence Data Exchange. In a very easy way, I can have my threat information and I can feed it as Infoblox to multiple security solutions. So I don't have to buy a threat feed for each security solution. This is one thing. Another thing, what we can do, we can create our own custom threat intelligence, IPs and domains, and then send them in different formats to all security solutions. So if I tell you block a list of IPs or domains, simple. You just put it and send it. I tell you some of them are false positive, just simple. Remove it from one single place and it's removed across all the security devices. That's threat intelligence centralization of management. It's not centrally managing devices, it's centrally managing threat intelligence. Another good thing, like now this is one to many. Now from a single threat source, I send to the whole network. Another thing which we can do, which is amazing, now we also integrate with third parties where we can read from different kinds of third-party solutions for threat information. So instead of buying them separately, you can buy them through Infoblox, or even if you have a contract, we honor these contracts, and then We you curate them, like, we combine them together and then make them as a single feed. Then you can play with that feed. Say, I want from that feed only the CNC IP list or the malware. And the malware, I want to put it like information on DNS. The bad URLs, I want to put it on the proxy. You can play around with this threat information. It's not like something that you have feed to feed over the network. The second part of the solution, so now we are managing the threat feed. Now becoming more effective in incident response. What about orchestration? What about making security solutions talk to each other? So we sit at the corner of the network and we talk to every single or many well-known devices over the network. We talk to NAC solutions, vulnerability management solutions, web gateways, endpoint security, and we make sure that we transfer information between these devices.
Actually, Ashraf, we have just only limited time,
Okay.
so could you finish that could you give an example or scenario that illustrates how can help in automation response to the threats and incidents, please?
Okay, so an example of how we do security, like, orchestration. Just an example. If you now have a new machine that comes to the network, a new laptop, you just plug into the network, you have to wait for the next cycle of security, like, a vulnerability management system to scan it. So if it's scanned every week, then you have to wait for the end of the week until it gets scanned. But if you have like a security ecosystem which can talk to every single solution, the moment you plug in your laptop, automatically the DNS knows that there's a new machine on the network because it also it's a DHCP and give it the IP. Automatically, we can inform the vulnerability management solution, like Tenable, which we integrate with, and tell Tenable immediately go scan that machine. So now we have an immediate action whenever a new machine is on the network. And this is how we ensure even compliance. I know we're out of time, but just like quickly, the last thing is just to show what's the meaning of bridging security silos. We said like we have threat feeds coming to different security solutions. Now we have a curated feed, a single source, which is managing it from the network, and then through the threat intelligence data exchange from Infoblox, you can feed it to all the network devices on the network. What's now the result? The result, if the malware or a zero-day attacks or spreads over your network, any device that tries to go out and is blocked by a zero-day, if it's blocked by the anti-malware solution, it doesn't stop here. We don't stop here. As Infoblox, we get this data from the anti-malware solution, and then if any device tries to go and access that bad place, we block it at the DNS level. And it doesn't stop here even. We can give it the information to the NAC solution and tell the NAC solution, go and take this machine out of the network. That's security orchestration. That's where we also improve the incident response and tell it, take it out of the network and remediate. So overall, if you have an internal or even remote network, the situation, our DNS takes information from one device, shares it across all security devices, any new threat discovered at any security device, any kind of internal or even remote device that's being infected, trying to take data out, gets blocked now at any device on the network. This is how to protect your network. So in a nutshell, we protect against DNS data exfiltration. This is a unique solution for Infoblox. We have threat intelligence and to protect across the entire security network to manage your threat intelligence. We have an advanced threat team that really works on this threat intelligence to update it. And we lead the integration through different kinds of protocols like Sticks and Taxi to make sure that all the security devices on the network talk to each other. Thank you.
Thank you very much.